atomic bomb is cellular event. It is in reference to a cell that can explode in space. I am atomic bomb. They are using me as atomic bomb. I know that most of the people know that, but it is very annoying when they continue to play hell in my mind and babble indefinitely. And they talk to me as I'm a human being. Well, they obviously have decided not to treat me as a human being. I can't call something like that a homeland. And never ever I will be calling something like that a homeland. I am atomic bomb. But it is a very good lecture to all of the humankind when they're using human as atomic bomb to understand that it can go in whatever direction it went. And as a result, you fellow countrymen, we have received rather Excalibur and Highlander than atomic bomb. The question is, who wanted atomic bomb? And that is not socialism but tribunal societies, and that is nothing of local but actually planetary. Tribunal societies and tribunal cultures actually still dominate the planet. They needed atomic bomb against anything that is different. And my approach is, of course, still questioning capitalism, because I think capitalism is overdoing it. I think that we live in times where capitalism doesn't make any more sense. I think that most of us feel, as we feel much more awakened and with this consciousness level, and we want justice around, we want less poverty, we want simply less misery, and we want less bad taste and less of scrupulous living. I think we all today, majority, equally agree that capitalism simply has overdone it and doesn't make any sense anymore. So these are the lines on which this atomic bomb exists. And if someone is in danger today with this atomic bomb, these would be the capitalists. Not nations, but capitalists. That being said, if you have any question, I would be happy to answer it. I don't think that it is just me, that kind of atomic bomb. I think that there are plenty of atomic bombs out there that think as myself. Only the future is going to tell us how it's going to end all of this. We all, in the meantime or otherwise, we all have our own personal escapes, and that should not be anyone else's business either. Either that's going to be my monarchy or that's going to be my tribunal society. That's personal. When stop being personal, then it is problem. Capitalism stopped being personal a long time ago. Certainly monarchy stopped being personal as well. And tribunal societies stopped being personal. And that is where mistakes happen. When you start wishing on behalf of someone else. And that's not right, right? Neither I'm going to do it. I don't want to enforce anything over people. But if you press this button, you should know where that goes. I think that's fair to say. That being said, arrivederci. Conversation over. Again, I can't understand how we can live in times where you can hear on news there are still hungry kids in New Zealand. There are hungry kids in New Zealand in 21st century. Excuse me. I can't even accept that sentence. Let's find out, can these American generals explain to us what kind of America they are defending? The one of a couple of billionaires of America. At the moment I have on my bank account $300. My entitlement pension as only income I have is $1,500 per month in New Zealand. There are hungry people in your country dying of hunger as we speak. So I'm just trying to explain to you, there is very little personal in what I'm doing here. It is just the times in which we live. So what I'm saying, generals, Trump estate nationalized. Hilton estate nationalized. Murdoch estate nationalized. Facebook protocol nationalized. Amazon nationalized. Twitter nationalized. Elon Musk nationalized. Any other mega company nationalized. I'm not sure about Kardashians, but probably that's going to be nationalized as well, because it is going again above limit of personal income needed for maintenance. Personal income needed for maintenance. Above that, it's pointless to talk about political system in a statehood with a flag. Do you understand my point, my ladies and gentlemen? If you really want to talk seriously about state with a flag, then it's time that you actually get serious. Because it seems you have departed from the logic of creating a state. And here I was to remind you how things evolved and what nation was once upon a time. Well, there was nothing else but basically looking after your people and taking care of your people. If any of above would like to have personal impact, that is what we call working place. That's what working place is. Personal impact is working place. By the rules. As that is what life is in this context. By the rules. Well, since you're being born from a mother, it was all by rules anyway. That's the name of our planet. By rules. Living by rules. We all agreed on that, right? That's why there is a free education. History doesn't exist for purposes of making money out of it. Neither Bible, for that matter. It was not purpose of Bible someone to make money out of it. And also Macedonians, there was no prostitution in socialism because everyone was considered free and people were supposed to fall in love and find a girl and fall in love. It was all about healthy, promotion of healthy lifestyle and presumed freedom for all. So you're a free person and you are therefore looking for partnership in your life. There is no need to buy love for money. So I think that in Macedonia, some people have been falling asleep while taking education in socialism. I think that not all of the people in socialism read Marx, which is rather laughable. But Marx was not taught in socialism in the way how Bible was taught, for example. But it should have been actually taught Marxism in socialism equal as Bible in capitalism, because the Bible of socialism was Marx, Karl Marx. And Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, they would to explain all these things, including free woman and free person, and what means free human being in a society. But regretfully, many people in socialism, which is rather paradoxical, you would argue, have not read Marx, Karl Marx, and Friedrich Engels, have not been reading Capital. I have studied it at University of Economy, and it was compulsory, but it was not cultural. Maybe that was the problem with socialism. It was not, the ideology went on the level of members of communist party, which then found a way how to be ahead of anyone else. Now, what was mistake here is that, first of all, the ideology, as much as it was certainly recruited solid class of intellectuals, most of them which ended to be killed as a communists, and also very much struggled and suffered. They were tortured and things like that, which was enough sick and done in sick societies and country of sick people and country of sick society by sick people. Another problem was that that education of masses somehow stopped. Masses were more like a sheep, and they were not educated even in idea of socialism, other than living in the system provided for them as their sheep. Everyone knew there is free education, free medical system, free access to a variety of services, but there was not proper socialism education in the schools. The education was rather ancient. Philosophy, literature, logic, but not socialism education. There was no socialism textbook there. The system was, it is more like you understand it by living in the society, so you don't need to read about it. Yet what kind of educated person you are going to be if you do not read your Bible, if you don't read your manifesto. Manifesto should have been compulsory at any university and should have been studied in high school as well, but it hasn't been studied at high school. And that is something I can't understand. I have problem to understand. We have been studying a lot since primary school about Second World War, studying in details like crazies, rather than to study socialism. People have not been recruited. I mean, by studying manifesto, you become recruited by it. That hasn't happened. So I really I think that it was more like in the movie Star Wars. Just certain territories submitted to that kind of protocol to become some kind of production of educated cheap labor, because the education was not about socialism. It was classic education. The system was socialism, but not the education. And that confirms that the scenario that we have here is Star Wars scenario, and that is production of cheap labor. What later happened is, by launching whatever military attack or event, stress, military turbulences, the population gets out of the box. And that is what was expected. Second stage was to get the people out of the box, to get that cheap, educated labor out of box. And that is why 90 days Yugoslavia being bombarded, and Milosevic trying to do whatever it takes to stop it. And the answer was, whatever you do, we are going to ask for more. Why was that kind of answer? Because they wanted to get these kids on their side as cheap labor, as what I am today for you, New Zealanders. Cheap labor. Cheap labor. So, to speak about atomic bomb without explaining what actually we are talking about is not going to do it. Therefore, Americans, we are talking nationalization of all of the big businesses. And we are talking monarchy of earth, because this kind of labor cannot be cheap. Monarchy of earth, therefore, is. And Macedonia, when it's ready, tell me. Of course, because human is not a robot, it has become, for me, all of this. First of all, I wasn't prepared about any of this, so it happened gradually. This writing within certain kind of purposefulness, and it was nothing about socialism. It was about actually the bloodline. And the movie Da Vinci Code got launched, certainly caught my attention, and all the rest of the movies made from Alexander to Achilles caught my attention somehow. Highlander or Arthur, things like that. Certainly was convenient for my awakening, should I call it. But and I certainly found myself as Alice in a Wonderland. I'm still talking about me, but that's not my intention. I want to say something here, and that is I found myself. This was not straightforward. My intention is to bring socialism. That's not how this happened, and that is not how this is happening. I found myself, first of all, as myself, in a soul search. I simply started to notice the world, and this kind of opportunity given, free time available, and as a suitable level of support, so it became a matter of thinking, and we actually started to talk about it, or I started to talk about it and ask questions, and we started to think about all of this. I wanted to say that in socialism, even in socialism, we have not been naturally all equal, and that is why one of my strongest statements is that we are not equal on most natural level. When it comes to personalities, we are not all equal, and that is not insignificant. You know, even if you have the same amount of money given, the result is going to be totally different of what same amount of money is going to make out of someone's personal endeavor. So majorly, I'm going to say that there are two categories of people in this entire world, and that is one category of people that take care of themselves, and other category of people that do not take care of themselves. No matter the money, you go on a trip out there with same amount of money, same amount of service. People are going to use services, free available services. They're going to use them differently. The habits, the preferences, inclinations, dreams, ambitions, behavior, how you realize them, how you approach your dreams, it's all different. During this entire engagement, a major top realization was my top realization, or what I noticed the most, was institution of temple or fortress, or institution of not just being different, but also learning how to protect yourself from others. It has become discovery of its own, and put entire socialism ideologies on second place. It turned to be monarchy before it's to be socialism, because it was about because it turned to be a rather personal awakening. It turned to be how it started. And it started as a Highlander protocol. It was somehow leading you into noticing something here. Noticing how different you are, and noticing that you are targeted, that you have been victimized, that you have been used as an asset, as a property, as a resource, even as a power plant or atomic bomb. And when you realize that, what's next? Vertical point, temple, castle. You are kind of in corner with entire situation, and you don't have any other way to explain all of that but to find the correct answer in mathematical way. And I mathematically found my answer out of what was already on the ground. That is why I was not running, and I could have not found socialism as a just society, because socialism exists on premises of going into another extremism. It is more like someone is playing the ball here in one extreme or into another extreme. Either it's capitalism, either you're a capitalist or you're going to be power plant for collective usability. Either you're a capitalist or you're going to be power plant for collective usability. Either monarch of power plant for collective usability of a nation. And what a person is going to choose. What a person possibly can choose by declaring it is a person. And that is where we are. And that is where I conclude. And I put all of these aspects in one sentence and I say, monarchy is national socialism. Or imperial, regional, or planetary. Because I think that's actually the most truthful answer. In this mathematical equation we today set on the table, I think that's the most correct answer. Accordingly, it is not about being monarch before you find yourself running away from being a national power plant. In other words, even towers will need to be justifiable. I'm sorry, but I cannot be power plant for monarchs as well. Well, in substance, that is the real house for power plants. Ladies and gentlemen, my verdict for today. And when I'm saying, what if power plant is black in a white society? Well, the answer is, it is the power plant, that is the citizenship, the population, that is the nation. A nation becomes question of national identity and national integrity. That is why it's national socialism. It makes sense only when it is in boundaries of nationalism. And it is national power plant. Well, otherwise it's not going to be power plant. If it is not national. It is somehow source protocol for the national identity. It is like lighthouse, right? Well, there should be plenty of common ground. Equally as monarchy is about common ground. That is why it is monarchy. Basically, power plant is monarchy protocol. So there is common denominator with the nation, national, cultural identity, religious identity, and all of that. Or maybe not exactly enough. Or maybe not exactly enough. So how far not exactly enough we are talking about? Are you going to play power plant for mules? Because if turn to be that a nation will need to be uplifted, as it is not going to be valuable enough, then we are talking about teaching, not about consuming. And that is where my constitution emerges. It is not about consuming. It's about nations will need to be taught. Not for cheap money, not for the price of primary school teachers. So if this looks like a revolution against you locals, maybe it is. There's plenty of wrong on this earth. So I can't accept that you have negative approach to what I'm doing here. That simply is not going to be possible. I can't let you to go away like that. You have to understand that in this situation, the wrong one is yourself. But what I'm saying here also is that socialism was not properly done, and it was not just society, not enough, because it was made on premises of, first of all, not suitable. There was no manifesto of socialism there, which is peculiar, and obviously the intentions there was absolutely not sincere. It was too much accent given to working class. That's also nothing good about it. That's number one complaint, actually. Then you have the international isolation, which is nothing of natural. There is international capital. You borrow the money. They have no right to interfere if you are going to return, if you are returning them the investment. Obviously, in regular classical economic terms, how it functions for any other state. Why isolation? Why isolation? That is like burden, like someone is burdening you, so you can't compete and you can't win because you're not supposed to win. Because you're not supposed to happen. You're supposed to be some kind of womb for delivering the generation, next generation of wonder kids that are going to be cheap labor. Today they're calling that, and today, of course, there is expression AI. That's AI. That is what is AI actually. The cheap labor of former socialism countries. What was wrong also is the power plants, which is actually monarchy bloodlines, monarchical bloodlines, their actual history transformed into economic protocol of economic usability for masses, and even for export. Out of what the entire nation is going to live, well, relating to these people as their cackadoos, as how you have related to my mother, as how you have related to me, as we are cackadoos. No respect, but humiliation. Making dirty carpet out of it. And that is where, if there is any warrior genetics in the blood, it would be strange if it doesn't rise above. In the way how I rose above with this work, to mock you on daily basis because you have earned it. On both sides of that equation, you have earned it. And also, I have discovered also the next finding, and that is that you have common denominator, and that is tribunal society. I don't want to crack down tribunal society. I found that as a most correct magical answer together with my monarchy. I found with my work what turned to be the correct answer is our natural existence in this magical realm, free out of religion and free out of any kind of systems, capitalism or the likes, that prevents you to realize yourself as a person. And by saying so, we reach the point that we are not all equal in the tribunal in more natural ways. But however, I could have not accept authentic tribunal order because it is too low scale in terms of behavior, especially male behavior. And then it is very close to trading people. And major reason why I could have not accept tribunal culture, it is because it is associated with trading people, and that's something we can't accept in 21st century. So it will need to be there for something that we need to create or craft by ourselves, and that is to take out what we don't want and to keep what we want to keep. That is always going to be the best approach in building society. So we want to keep the magical nature and us understanding our connection with nature and working on it. So that's a very beautiful part of the tribunal culture. And that is where it would look like returning to these parameters, to these configurations. But then we would certainly need better, still very active state organization, where we will need therefore monarchy rather than power plant, because it will need to be about not just personal freedom, but identity that's going to be this, bringing this level of teaching and this level of basically radiating life energy itself. I mean, via talking about it, via providing its its opinion, and via and yes, bringing communication forward, and so on. Free, intelligent, intellectual living is what would be the new addition to previous tribunal society. Much more of education, much more of conduct, and much more of developed higher level of overall cultural setting within the parameters of properly crafted legal and social system, which becomes statehood in the way how I have charted it, in the way how I have crafted it. So the last chapter of, and I think we have done all of that by now. We have understood each other, I think, very well about all of that. What is the missing part is private companies, and I think I covered that today as well. I think I spoke today about socialism enough, and about where we see now the wrongdoing. Wrongdoing is when people end up making something too much about the money, and when they stand up above anyone else with the money rather than with anything else. And that is not how we should be bringing our latest conversation about socio-political systems in 21st century. And here I'm going to also add, money is not power. Knowledge and skill is power, but not money. When money becomes powerful, we call that criminal, because it is out of being author to something, out of being regular, or out of being correct in something. It is about doing things in wrong way. It is about you end up violating things, and you find out your entire wealth exists out of violation. You end up undoubtedly associated to criminal in one way or another, or in all of the possible ways. And what kind of satisfaction such kind of money would provide to any young person or to any modern society? That capitalism, that dirty, ugly capitalism, I think that's over. Sensitivity versus controlship. It will need to be therefore recorded that socialism, there is another momentum which we experienced in socialism, and that is fear, from Führer, fear, that kind of fear. Socialism was in many ways continuation of what was Nazism. People were, for example, when it happened the Inform Bureau period, called Inform Bureau in 1948, where Yugoslavian leadership decided to depart from Sovietsky Soyuz socialism leadership. It happened overnight, almost overnight. Our communists were supposed to know that they cannot align anymore with Russian communists. And it was question of life or death. After that being proclaimed formally on television, people were expected to behave accordingly. And if someone was by any accident not hearing the news, they would be immediately taken as foreign element, as unwanted element, immediately prosecuted, people who are disappearing overnight, ending in prison, or even killed. It was hunting. It was more like looking for reason to hunt people down. People ended up to live in fear, afraid to ask anything, became obedient sheep that would just follow the orders and do as being told. That is why you call it regime. But I think when you say regime, it is not clear enough that it is based on fear and threats. And that if you're not obedient, then you end up in prison and you end up being beaten up or even killed. That's regime. You live under fear and under constant threat. And that's all with purpose, so you don't end up asking questions. Because the aim of a regime is that to obviously to reach a state where you don't ask questions, just follow orders. That's a regime. You ask questions, you go in prison, or you end up being dead. And Western democracies are correct when they say, democracy is important. Yes, freedom and democracy are important. Exactly. That is why I could have not started my awakening here chanting socialism, because there was no much to be happy about. Many people ran away there, very more awakened people, much more freedom-defined people could have not existed in such a system. More self-defined people that would have certain dreams, would like to accomplish something, would find very much blocked in such systems. As much as I have said capitalism today lost its purpose and become mockery of its own democracy, the point is that systems or someone is driving the planet from one extreme to another extreme. And we have to pay attention to that. None of the extremes are the correct answer. None of the extremes. Which means we have to bring it to the central ground. That is with stronger social programs. You cannot accept to have poverty anymore. National social programs should be taking place. And today, plenty of that actually it is happening. There is no there is no better answer. There's the answer. What's harder to understand is why on the other side of the planet, in Middle East, people continue to create immigrants. And then there is that much effort on the West side to get rid of them. That is going very much in extreme opposition. And then the parody is that Western countries themselves are the one throwing the bombs in the Middle East, but then they're complaining about immigrants. That is just pointless. You cannot accept America to support Jewish people if America wants to get rid out of immigrants. Straightforward. Very much straightforward. There's no any other reason. There is no other reason why would you like or dislike someone, but because of their actions. And you measure the actions in reference to what you want and what you don't want. You don't want immigrants. You don't want the one that is bombarding territories. That's how it works. Yes, National Socialism or strong social protocol, clean, neat, organized. And certainly we want to talk about democracy and we want to talk about freedom. So why socialism looked how it looked? Because they're sick-minded, people out there, or because that's occupied territory, or because of the boat. There was documentary. Well, there was war in Bosnia. There were billionaires, world-class billionaires, that would have been going in Bosnia for money, or would have been invited in Bosnia for money to go and kill people. Well, they have been running out of city being bombarded, of course, by American bombs. Well, the city under siege in Bosnia, that is Sarajevo, and foreign billionaires for money buying right to go in Bosnia and kill people out of pleasure. Capitalism, ladies and gentlemen, capitalism defined. Well, now we can talk about atomic bombs as well. And it would make sense. Or otherwise it would not make any sense. Now it makes sense. Then you don't end up confused who is good guy here as well and who is not. Because that's also very, very, very important aspect in this communication. Who are the bad guys and who are the good guys? That's a very, very important question of today. Capitalism lovers.